In the spring of 1922, neighbors approached a quiet farm in Bavaria, Germany. The place was called Hinterkaifeck, a remote farmstead surrounded by woods, fields, and silence. For days, no one had seen the family. The children had missed school. The mail was piling up. And yet, from the outside, the farm still looked alive. Smoke had risen from the chimney. The cattle had been fed. Someone had been moving through the property. But when the neighbors finally entered the barn, they found something Germany would never forget. 6 people were dead, and the person who killed them may have stayed in the house afterward, eaten their food, using their fire, feeding their animals, and waiting in the silence. This is the case file of Hinterkaifeck. Facts, files, stories that refuse to stay buried. Hinterkaifeck was not a town. It was not a crowded village. It was a small farmstead roughly 70 kilometers north of Munich, near Weidhofen in Bavaria. The name itself came from the idea of being behind Kaifeck, a nearby hamlet. It was isolated, bordered by dense woods, and far enough away that a family could disappear for several days before anyone understood something was wrong. The people living there were the Gruber family. Andreas Gruber was 63. His wife, Cecilia, was 72. Their widowed daughter, Victoria Gabriel, was 35. Victoria's daughter, young Cecilia, was only 7. Her son, Joseph, was only 2. And the family's new maid, Maria Baumgartner, was 44. Maria had arrived at the farm on the very day of the murders. That detail alone has haunted the case for more than a century, because she may have walked into Hinterkaifeck on her first day of work and never left alive. The most disturbing part of Hinterkaifeck is not only what happened on the night of the murders, it is what happened before. In the weeks and days leading up to the killings, the family reportedly experienced strange events around the farm. Their previous maid had left months earlier. She said she heard noises in the attic and believed the house was haunted. Then Andreas Gruber found a newspaper on the property, a newspaper from Munich. But no one in the household had bought it, and according to the case reports, no one nearby subscribed to it either. Then came the missing key. A key to the house reportedly disappeared. Then came the footprints. Andreas told neighbors he had found tracks in the snow. They led from the forest toward the farm, toward the house, toward the machine room door where the lock appeared damaged. But the tracks only went one way. There were footprints leading in, none leading back out. That detail sounds like something written for a horror movie. But this was not a movie. This was a real farm, a real family, and someone appeared to be watching them before the murders happened. The murders are believed to have happened on the evening of March 31st, 1922. Investigators later believed that several of the victims may have been lured into the barn one by one. 4 bodies were found there: Andreas, his wife, Cecilia, their daughter, Victoria, and 7-year-old Cecilia. The 2-year-old Joseph was found inside the house. So was the new maid, Maria Baumgartner. The weapon was later identified as a mattock, a heavy farm tool similar to a pickaxe or hoe. That weapon was later recovered in the loft of the barn. But this was not a robbery that went wrong. Money was reportedly still inside the house. Valuables were not the clear focus, and the killer did not appear to flee immediately. That is where Hinterkaifeck becomes something colder, because the murders were only the first half of the mystery. The second half is what happened after. After the family was killed, the farm did not go silent in the way people expected. From the outside, it still seemed occupied. Smoke reportedly came from the chimney. The animals were cared for. Food was eaten. The fireplace was used. According to case summaries, the perpetrator lived with the 6 bodies for 3 days after the murders, feeding the animals, eating food from the house, and using the fireplace. Think about what that means. Someone killed 6 people on an isolated farm, then stayed. Not for minutes, not just long enough to search the house, but for days, moving through the rooms, opening doors, lighting the fire, walking past the bodies, feeding the animals so the farm would appear normal. That one detail changes the entire feeling of the case. It suggests the killer was not panicking. It suggests they were familiar enough with the property to remain there, or confident enough that no one would interrupt them. The farm became a crime scene and a hiding place at the same time. By April 4, neighbors had become concerned. The family had not been seen. Young Cecilia had missed school. Maria Baumgartner's relatives had heard nothing from her after her first day of work. Eventually, neighbors went to the farm to check. Among them was Lawrence Schlittenbauer, a neighbor who would later become one of the most discussed figures in the case. When they entered the barn, they found the bodies. The crime scene quickly became contaminated. People moved around the property. Some disturbed the scene. According to later summaries, investigators from Munich were assigned. But the early investigation was badly hurt because onlookers had moved around the bodies and potential evidence. Some people had even cooked meals in the kitchen. Today, that sounds impossible. But this was rural Bavaria in 1922. No modern forensic lockdown, no DNA testing, no sealed crime scene like we expect now. By the time investigators began working the case, Hinterkaifeck had already been touched, crossed, and changed by too many people. A silent farm had become a crowded mystery. The investigation was led by authorities from Munich, including Inspector Georg Reingruber. The autopsies were performed in the barn. That alone tells you how different this case was from modern investigations. The victims' skulls were removed and sent to Munich for further examination. The case file notes that young Cecilia may have survived for hours. After the attack, based on evidence that she had torn out tufts of her own hair while lying in the straw. That detail is one of the hardest parts of the case. Use it carefully. Do not sensationalize it, because it reminds the audience that this was not just a mystery. It was a family. It was children. It was a woman on her first day of work. Investigators questioned traveling craftsmen, vagrants, neighbors, people from surrounding villages. They first considered robbery, but that theory struggled because money and valuables did not seem to be the main motive. And then, like most unsolved cases, the investigation began to orbit around names, suspects, rumors, old grudges, secrets that may have existed inside the family, and one neighbor whose behavior kept coming back into the story. One of the most discussed suspects was Lawrence Schlittenbauer. He had reportedly had a relationship with Victoria Gabriel after his first wife died in 1918. He came under suspicion early because of several actions after the bodies were discovered, when Schlittenbauer and others arrived at Hinterkaifeck. To investigate the family's disappearance, they found the doors locked and entered through the barn. But after the bodies were found, Schlittenbauer allegedly unlocked the front door and went into the house alone. That mattered because a house key had disappeared before the murders. People wondered, did he have the missing key? Had Victoria given it to him? Did he know the layout too well? Or was he simply a neighbor acting in shock? Schlittenbauer reportedly said he entered the house to look for Josef, the 2-year-old child. But he also disturbed the bodies at the scene, which damaged the investigation further. No one was ever convicted, and that is important. A true crime channel has to be careful here. Suspicion is not proof. A strange action is not a conviction. Lorenz Schlittenbauer became part of the mystery, but the case did not end with him. Over the decades, Hinterkaifeck has collected theories like dust. Some believe the killer was someone close to the family, someone who knew their routines, someone who knew the farm. Others believe the motive may have involved jealousy, inheritance, family conflict, or secrets around Victoria's relationships. Some theories point to travelers or unknown intruders. Some online versions even drift into supernatural claims because of the attic noises and the footprints. But the grounded facts are already disturbing enough. A key disappeared. Footprints led toward the property. The family heard noises in the attic. A newspaper appeared that no one could explain. 6 people were killed. The killer stayed. The farm was later demolished. During demolition, additional evidence was reportedly found, including a blood-stained mattock hidden in the attic and a penknife in the hay. A memorial was later placed near the former location of the farm. That means even after the crime scene was destroyed, the case kept producing questions. Hinterkaifeck is terrifying because it does not rely on a monster hiding in the dark. The horror is quieter than that. It is the idea that someone may have already been inside, in the attic, around the farm, watching the family, learning their habits, waiting. Then, after 6 people were dead, that same person did not vanish immediately into the woods. They stayed. They kept the fire going. They fed the animals. They made the farm look alive while everyone inside it was gone. More than 100 years later, the Hinterkaifeck murders remain unsolved. The farm is gone. The witnesses are gone. The suspects are gone. But the question is still there. Who walked into Hinterkaifeck, and why were they so comfortable staying? I'm Robby Blaine. This is Beyond the Static. Facts, files, stories that refuse to stay buried.